Have you ever been in a long-term relationship?
Oh yeah, I've been in a few. My longest relationship was about 3 years. Didn't end very well, but
Why don't you tell me about that?
oh,
When you say it didn't end very well, what? Tell me about the ending. And
oh, it ended with her ending up cheating on me, and then like just completely becoming a complete 180 from. She started as one of the sweetest girls I'd ever met in my life, just adorable this girl, and then she just turned into something ugly as far as just herself as a person and how she treated people and it got to the point where she ended up asking me, I was still living with her for a little while I was trying to get my new place set up. And during that time, she ended up trying to ask me, she wanted me to let me bring her new boyfriend over to our place on the 10th anniversary of my mom dying. Like that's the kind of thing I'm talking about with this.
And how did you feel about that? As an example.
I thought that was the worst, like least considerate thing I'd ever heard. That was just the complete and utter lack of respect. She knew what day it was too. It wasn't like this was some surprise out of the blue. She knew exactly what day it was, and it just showed how she had changed as a person as far as her consideration for people's feelings. And she tried to be like, oh, you wouldn't, I wouldn't care if you brought over a new girl. I'm like, first of all, I know I've seen how you've reacted to seeing some of our other friends with new people in public. I know for a fact you would be absolutely livid. But, okay, let's pretend that, that you would have zero feelings about this, that you're that, cold, as a person. I just wouldn't do that just because that's not cool. It's not right. It's very disrespectful,
In that relationship, when I listen to you talk about it, can you give me an example of what you would do differently now in picking the choice of a new mate versus picking her? Having done that relationship, what did you learn from that relationship to do differently in a new relationship?
I definitely learned more about making sure that I'm not the only one doing all the compromising in the relationship, because a relationship is supposed to be a shared experience, a shared, compromise, exactly, I've given up this, for you, and you've done this to, help me out. It's about helping each other and doing, things to make each other happy. And it got to a point where I seemed to be the only one, dropping things, to be with her and to help her out. And,
It's definitely it's a learning experience. All of life is a learning experience, So that's why I wanted to ask you about what it is you have learned from the last relationship that you would do differently going into a new relationship, because that's very important. To learn something from every relationship about oneself, because it's the people who walk through life and never reflect that don't learn. So I just want to make sure you're, looking back, looking at things that you could have done differently, so that as you move forward, you definitely have learned, and you're going to blossom a bit. Things will be a little easier on you the second time around. Have you had a second relationship now since then?
Oh yeah, I had another girlfriend for about 7 months after that, and then my next relationship after that was for about a year and a half.
Okay.
And
so tell me about the second relationship after hers.
After her, it was.
Tell me how you met. Tell me how you met and what you saw in her that you really liked.
Well, the next girl after the 3-year relationship was actually somebody I had maybe met once or twice several years ago. She was a friend of some other folks I used to hang out with, and actually a friend of an ex-girlfriend out in McGuanago. And we just started, we got connected online at some point. We just started talking, and it just sort of, we just hit it off real well, and it went all right, but it just sort of ended up dying off. It wasn't a bad breakup. It just sort of was us going, this really isn't going to work.
So how did the compromise, the one thing you said about your last relationship that you really liked, that you learned, was about compromise. How do you feel you compromised in that relationship, even though it was a short-term relationship? What do you feel you learned from this one that you actually took forward and used that skill that you learned?
It's hard to say, really. It really didn't, like you said, it was a relatively shorter relationship, so it's hard to really gauge it. It didn't really last long enough for there to be like major sacrifices on either side. We both, were going out to, either's place. It was, a bit of a trek for both of us, but it was a matter of, just finding the middle ground, taking the time to see each other and, helping each other with stuff. I was helping her, study for, school and everything like that. And,
Okay,
helping
let's
her out
talk
with
about
her
your
job.
next one then, the third relationship.
Yeah.
And how many, in a length of time, from the first one to the third relationship, how much time span is there?
I'd say it's about a 6-year span there.
Okay.
After the 3-year relationship, it was about 7 or 8 months before my next relationship. And then actually the relationship after that one actually sort of started the week that the previous one ended. It wasn't intended that way.
Okay, so tell me about that. Tell me the fact that it wasn't
Yeah.
intended, and tell me how it just happened.
What it was, I had just joined a theater group called The Mutes. It's a silent film style sketch comedy group. And I was getting ready for my first show with the group, which was going to be their 1-year anniversary. And at one of the rehearsals, I ended up meeting this girl. She had, she's an artist, and she had her stuff posted at a lot of the shows, and she was pretty much the group's #1 super fan. Like, she loved old stuff like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. Like, those are her heroes. So I ended up running into her at the thing, and she was like, I'm like, I had no. Apparently, she recognized me, and she actually did. She was actually even able to guess my name. I was like, wow, And eventually, when
Clearly,
she
you
said
had made
her
an
name,
impression on her in the earlier
exactly,
years.
I had no idea how we knew. Apparently, we were Facebook friends, and didn't even realize it. Apparently, through some film relations, but. And once she said her first name, I figured out her last name because she had the same first name as another friend who she resembled, and I remembered seeing that come up.
How was that for you, making sure it wasn't the other person you were thinking of?
Oh, because I went to high school with the other one, so it was
Okay.
it wasn't an uncanny resemblance, but it was enough, and I knew that I had passed that name several times when I'd be sending out event invitations.
Sure. So how did you ask her out?
Well, what happened when we met, I wasn't really thinking of that because I was at the time still with the previous girlfriend. It was, and she, and this girl was real nice. She gave everybody magnets of her art and everything like that, and I wasn't really thinking anything of it, But then I believe it was 2 days later that when the rehearsal was on Monday, it was Wednesday that my girlfriend at that time and I ended up finally breaking up, just because, like I said, it wasn't working. It wasn't, a bad breakup. It was just one of those things like, this isn't really working. We'll just go our separate ways. And then that Friday then was our first show, and that night we ended up talking, and after the show we hung out for a while. We ended up hang out outside of her car. We were just standing out, in the rain under a tree talking for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was funny. The founder of the Mutes, Alice, she came out with her at that time boyfriend. Now it's her husband. They came outside and she saw us talking, and I looked and she got that look like, and I'm like, oh God, I'm never gonna hear the end of this. And it's funny, then she told me then later that her boyfriend, the first thing he said when he saw us was, oh my God, those two are going to be there forever because neither one of them ever shuts up. Which, true enough.
So there's no lack of conversation in your third relationship.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, and how long was that relationship?
That one lasted for about a year and a half.
Okay, and did you part ways nicely in that one?
Yeah.
Good.
Relatively nice ways. She was about 24 at the time. I figured a lot of it was stuff that maybe she would grow out of, grow up a little, as far as views with stuff, and she proved me wrong. Sometimes it'll happen. She proved that this was one of those cases where it wasn't going to, and
right.
It just
Well,
wasn't
that's
working.
a really important thing that we would want to talk about,
Yeah.
because there's literally a theory: what you see is what you get when you meet someone, and that's really, really important to know. because people generally don't change cosmetically, and who they are as a person is what you're getting the entire time you're with someone. Yes, people mature, but they don't change, they mature.
Exactly, and this was stuff where I thought she would mature. It's I understand. There's definitely me personally, I'm one of those guys. Like I don't want to change who I am as a person. Like there might be some things I'm willing to change or willing to give up for a person if I care about them enough. But as far as changing myself as a person, as a human being, my beliefs and everything like that, I wouldn't do that. But this was something where I thought maybe she would, like you said, mature, out of some of this, mature out of some of her, upbringing of what she was,